Hey everybody, and welcome back to WASD20. My name is Nate, and today we're going to be making a Warlock for D&D 5th edition. Now, a Warlock is a magic user that has come by its magic power from some sort of patron, a being of some great power. It could be fiendish in nature, it could be otherworldly, but a being that is typically not going to be as clearly a deity, like with a cleric. A warlock, like a cleric, can be mechanically pretty useful in combat, effective in hand-to-hand combat, as well as wielding some pretty powerful, some pretty cool spells. And warlocks are pretty popular among a lot of people because they're seen as a really useful class and mechanically just really solid. Now, for the order of character creation, I usually prefer to start with race. Now, I'm going to put a link to my website for the character creation page there on wasd20.net. Link right up there. You can take a look. You can find this form-fillable character creation PDF that I have here. You can find my preferred order and some of my other instructions for character creation. And anyway, today we're going to be starting with race. Then we're going to do ability scores. Then we're going to talk about the background. Then we will finally get to class and equipment and talk about spells and things like that. So for race, I decided to go with a Tiefling this time because I don't think I've done one yet in these videos, and I normally try to steer away from it, but I figured I should challenge myself, try something new, give it a try. So Tieflings are of an infernal bloodline. It says here on page 42 of the player's handbook, it says that they usually have some kind of horns coming out of their head, although it could vary. They sometimes will have a tail even. And Tieflings are sometimes evil, or at least have ties to evil in their bloodline, because one of their ancestors way back, made a pact with Asmodeus, the overlord of the 9 hells, and this evil has been infused into their very blood. Now, some Tieflings can be good, but they are generally viewed with a lot of suspicion by outsiders, and many people don't like them. So firstly, we're going to be picking a name for our Tiefling here, and I think I'm going to go with a female, and I'm just looking at the book here. Okay, so I've come up with a bit of a mishmash of names here, and we will call this Tiefling Warlock Annakaia. And it's not uncommon for Tieflings who are trying to be more virtuous to perhaps pick a different name, and often just select a virtue, such as Quest or Hope, or maybe something more negative like torment or sorrow. But I'm just going to go with a pretty standard Tiefling sounding name. Alright, let's skip over to the statistically relevant stuff. I do recommend reading more about Tieflings on page 42 and 43. But we're going to skip to the Tiefling traits. So we know that we have an ability score increase of intelligence +1. So I'm just going to put that here for now. And charisma +2. So when we get our eventual ability scores, we will complete that. And I'm going to say that my Tiefling I don't like to play evil characters myself, so I'm going to go with chaotic. They tend to be chaotic, but I'm going to go with chaotic good. Tiefling size is medium, about the same as humans, and speed is going to be 30 feet. Thanks to my infernal heritage, I do have dark vision that allows me to see 60 feet in the dark. And it says here I have hellish resistance, which means resistance to fire damage. And because of my infernal heritage, I also know the thaumaturgy cantrip. Actually, I'll put that on the spell section. That's on page 3 of my 3-page complete form-fillable PDF. And I'm just going to say here that's a racial thing so that it doesn't count against my total cantrips, actually. And then once you reach higher levels, you can also cast some other spells. So it would be important when you're leveling up as a Tiefling to keep that in mind. Languages. Put these down in other proficiencies in languages. We can speak, read, and write Common and Infernal. Alright, now that's going to be it for the race. We are now going to roll for ability scores, and the way I like to do that is 4d6. I have 4 6-sided die here, and I'm going to be rolling them, and then I drop the lowest and put it where I want it. And for now I'm just going to put them right here. First one was a 13. Alright, that last one was a doozy. I got a 17, so pretty good. And the rest you can see right there. Now, for actually placing these ability scores, I do usually go with the recommendations in the book, and that's a good idea, especially when you're fairly new to the game. So it says here that first, Charisma should be your highest ability score, followed by Constitution. And yeah, so I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to go for it. So I got my 17 there. And I'm going to put it in Charisma with my +2. That makes it a 19. That is really high, and that's going to make me a pretty powerful spellcaster, even at first level. Next up, Constitution. I'm going to make that my 13. I think then we'll go with Dexterity and make it a 13. I'm sorry, a 12. Strength will make a 10. Intelligence an 11, which will make it a 12, and Wisdom will be a 10. And now we have our ability score set. We can go ahead and put in our ability score modifiers at this time, and for the way to do that, you can look on page 13 of the player's handbook and record them there, or the easy trick is to subtract 10 and then divide that number by 2 and always round down. So we subtract 10 from here and we get 0. This would be 2 divided by 1. We get +1. I'm sorry, 2 divided by 2 +1. 15. Alright, there we have it. I have my ability score modifiers in place. And so those are the things we are going to add to skills and other ability checks. So we'll keep that in mind for later. Alright, and now I usually like to go to the background section, and one of the reasons I like to do this is because it gives you a couple skills along with the background, a couple skill proficiencies, and then after that you can go to class and you can not pick skills that you already have with your background, so it just makes sense in that way. So I've decided to go with the sailor background in this case, just because it sounded interesting. So obviously, you probably know what a sailor is, but we're going to skip to the mechanical stuff here and go to skill proficiencies. And it says here that we get skill proficiencies, and this is on page 139 of the player's handbook, in athletics and perception. So we will darken those circles in there for now and deal with them later. For tool proficiencies, it says I'm proficient with navigator's tools and vehicles, water vehicles. That doesn't mean I get these, it means I'm proficient with them. Alright, for equipment it says that I get a belaying pin, which it also says I think can be used as a club. I'm not quite sure on that. And then it says 50 feet of silk rope, a lucky charm, and I rolled on the trinket table in chapter 5. I rolled 2d10, and I ended up getting an enormous green scale, perhaps belonging to a dragon. So pretty cool lucky charm. Common clothes, and then I get a belt pouch with 10 gold pieces. So one really cool feature of the sailor is that you have this feature called Ship's Passage. And it basically means it could be easier for you to get a ride from point A to B by sea, because perhaps you have some connections from your sailing days. So I'm just going to put the page number here, and it's kind of up to you and the DM in a lot of cases to decide how that's going to work in the game. Alright, now I'm going to roll for some of these characteristics here on page 139. And I'll record these and we'll take a look afterwards. Alright, so I've got my characteristics here. I've got 2 personality traits. You always roll for 2. And I have foul mouth, and I like a job well done, especially if I can convince someone else to do it. My ideals, I have respect between captain and crew keeps a ship together. So respect is a big ideal of mine. But my bonds, the ship is the most important thing. Captain and crew may come and go. So while I respect them while they're there, I really do value, actually, the physical ship. And then my flaw is once I start drinking, it's hard for me to stop. So a bit of a maybe salty personality here on Annakaia, our Tiefling Warlock sailor. So this is all stuff again that could be helpful for you in when you're trying to role play this character and think about what would your character do and how would my character act and things like that. This can be some fun stuff. Now you don't have to roll for them. Remember that you can just go down the charts and choose what you like, but sometimes it can be fun to roll for it. So I do recommend reading a little more of the flavor text there on page 139 for Sailor, but we're going to skip now to the class section. Warlock again is found on page 105 in the Player's Handbook. You can read all about it there, but we are going to skip to the class features here. And our hit dice is 1d8 per Warlock level, so not quite as squishy as, say, a Wizard. And our hit points are 8 plus our Constitution modifier, that's 8 plus 1 in this case. So a measly 9 hit points, but could be worse. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and record my proficiencies here. I am proficient with light armor and simple weapons. My saving throw proficiencies are in wisdom and charisma. Skill proficiencies, I can choose 2 from Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, and Religion. I think I am going to go with Arcana. And let's go with Investigation. Sounds like an interesting one. Now don't forget, you do have the option to select all of your own equipment and just roll for gold and go shopping, but I usually like to take that default equipment from the background first of all, and if I do that, then I also would just take this default equipment and get a little bit of choice here in the equipment section on page 107. That's the equipment section for the Warlock, I mean. In this case, I think I am going to go with a quarterstaff. I get to choose between a crossbow or a simple weapon, but I'm going to go with the quarterstaff. And I'm just going to put that up here right now, actually. And it won't let me write the whole thing in there. That's weird. Then I get a quarterstaff or an arcane focus, and this would be some kind of spellcasting thing. It could be like a medallion or a wand or something like that. And I think I'm just going to go with a component pouch in this case. Then I get leather armor, any simple weapon, and 2 daggers. So for my other simple weapon, I think I am going to choose a hand axe. Now actually, I decided I'm going to go back and take that light crossbow. I didn't look ahead enough to see that I already get a simple weapon, so I don't know why it's not letting me type the whole thing in there. It usually does, but anyway, we'll go with it. That means light crossbow, and then we still get our quarterstaff for our simple weapon. I also selected a Dungeoneer's pack here instead of a Scholar's pack. Dungeoneer's pack just seems a little more practical for adventuring. A little more in line with what I have for this character. Alright, if we continue here on page 107 of the Player's Handbook, we can read about magic. We get packed magic. We have struck a deal with an otherworldly patron, the Archfey, the Fiend, or the Great Old One. I've decided I'm going to go with the Great Old One here. So we are going to get 2 cantrips, it says here, because of this pact. So I'll just put here for now times 2, and I'll go select 2 more later. And then at first level, if we look at the chart on page 106, it says that we are going to have 2 cantrips, then we know 2 spells, and we have 1 spell slot, 1 first level spell slot. So we have 1 spell slot, but we have 2 first level spells, so we can choose which one we want to cast, basically. If you're wondering how magic works and trying to figure out what are spell slots and all this stuff, I just did a video, it's How to Play D&D Part 3 and Part 4, that explain pretty well the basics of how magic works in the game. So a couple things I'm reading here as I look through the Warlock section that are pretty neat. First off, you regain your spell slots not after just a long rest, but also after a short rest, which is different than the other casting classes as far as I've seen. So that's pretty cool. The other thing is that you can select a new spell to replace one of your old spells when you level up. So you can interchange one spell at the time of leveling up in addition to picking a new spell. Now we're going to determine our spell casting ability here, and the way we do that is our spell save DC. This is how hard it's going to be for other creatures to avoid some of our spell effects. Is going to be 8 plus our proficiency bonus plus our charisma modifier. So 8 plus charisma is plus 4, that's 12, plus our proficiency bonus, which I forgot to put here. At level 1, it is plus 2. So that makes for a total spell save DC of 14. Our spell attack modifier is our proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier, and so that is simply plus 6. Pretty good. Our spell casting ability we can put here is charisma. I'll just put CHA. Spellcasting class is Warlock. Alright, so for Eldritch Invocations at 2nd level you can get some of these. I'm going to skip that because I'm only a 1st level here, but you'll want to read that. And then at 3rd level you can get certain abilities based on your pact. This pact that you have with this greater being that is giving you magical powers. So there is a boon that comes with that pact, but we don't get that at 1st level. Now, the otherworldly patrons. There's the Archfey, there is the Fiend, and there is the Great Old One. And I'm going to be choosing the Great Old One this time. A mysterious entity whose nature is utterly foreign to the fabric of reality. It might come from a far realm, the space beyond reality, etc., etc. So some pretty cool flavor text there, very briefly, on page 109. And so there are some beings that could be unknown even to the people who have made the pact. They just know some strange and mysterious force or being out there granted them power. And so there is a list here of expanded spells, so spells that perhaps warlocks would not normally get, but are opened up to warlocks because of their pact. So each of the pacts has has several spells that you now have the option to choose from. Alright, we don't get much here yet, but it does say Awakened Mind. Starting at 1st level, your alien knowledge gives you the ability to touch the minds of other creatures. You can communicate telepathically with any creature you can see within 30 feet of you. You don't need to share a language with the creature for it to understand your telepathic utterances, but the creature must be able to understand at least one language. That's pretty interesting. So I'm just going to write that down here in my features and traits. I could put it here in spellcasting. I'm just going to put it right here. And I'll just summarize: telepathic, communication, and I'll put the page number here in parentheses. Page 110. Alright, so after that you can get some other things at 6th, 10th, and 14th level. And then in the Warlock section here on page 110 we have all the list of Eldritch Invocations, which are kind of like spells. We're going to skip over those for now because we don't get any at 1st level. And now we have come to the time when we get to select our spells. Alright, so for my cantrips, in addition to Thaumaturgy, which I get because I am a Tiefling, I selected Eldritch Blast, which is an offensive. It's 1d10, it's just like this bolt of force and light that shoots out. And then Minor Illusion, which is a pretty cool one. You can get really creative with that. Create a light or an illusion of an object and kind of play tricks on people with that. Alright, so for my 1st level spells I've selected Witch Bolt, which is definitely a fan favorite, or a player favorite I should say. Just a powerful 1d12 blast of energy, and it scales at higher levels, so at 2nd level it's 2d12, 3rd level it's 3d12, so pretty popular spell for good reason. And then Armor of Agathis, which is something that will allow me to gain 5 additional hit points, temporary hit points, and people attacking me I think also take cold damage. And anyway, that one can be cast at higher levels too for greater effect, which is pretty cool. Alright, so that's it for my spells for now. I don't get to fill out any of the other parts of this sheet at this time, but I will go back and tie up some of the loose ends on the rest of the character sheet here. First off, my armor class. So with leather armor, my armor class is going to be 11 plus my dexterity modifier, which is +1. So my armor class will be 12. My initiative is always just my dexterity modifier, so that is going to be +1. Inspiration is something my DM gives me. I don't need to figure that out right now. Can fill out my weapon damage here. My quarterstaff, the attack bonus, I am proficient with this, so I get to add that to my attack. So it's going to be +2, and then for quarterstaff it's my strength modifier, which is 0, so it's just going to be +2 to attack with that. My damage, it is 1d6, and in this case it is my strength modifier alone, so it's going to be just 1d6 because I have a +0, and it's going to be bludgeoning, so I put a B there. For my light crossbow, it's the same thing here, +2 for my attack bonus. Oh, actually, now my crossbow, I don't apply my strength modifier here, I actually apply my dexterity modifier, which is +1, and then plus my proficiency, that makes for +3 total. And then it is 1d6 plus my dexterity modifier is 1. I do not get to add my proficiency to damage. And for a crossbow, it is piercing. Now I am actually going to put my spell, Eldritch Blast, here because it's a cantrip. I can see myself using it a lot. That means I can cast it as much as I want. And honestly, it's a lot more powerful than these weapons. So I'm going to put it here. Eldritch Blast, my attack bonus is my spell attack bonus, which is +6. That's pretty darn good. And then it is 1d10. And it is force damage. So pretty powerful cantrip that will be very useful offensively. Another thing I have to do here is fill out some of my skills based on my ability score modifiers. So with the saving throws, I'm just going to base them on what I see here. So strength, based on my modifier, +1. Dexterity, based on my modifier. I'm sorry, strength was +0. There we go. Wishful thinking. Dexterity +1, and I'll continue down there. The key being that when I am proficient in it, I also get to add my proficiency bonus. So wisdom at 0 is actually going to be +2 because I get to add my proficiency bonus. Alright, so now I've got my saving throws and my ability scores correctly filled out, I think. And my passive wisdom is going to be based on my perception here. And it's basically 10 plus my perception. My perception I can see is +2, so that'll make this 12. Alright, well, I think that is about it, my friends. This is the first Warlock I've ever made, and the first Tiefling I've ever made. So here is Annakaia, and she is a Warlock sailor who is off adventuring, so you might see her on the road. Now, if you have any questions or comments, usually I end up messing something up in these videos, so just go ahead and tell me what that is down below. I look forward to hearing from you. And yeah, happy to help if you have any questions. Make sure you check out my website again, wasd20.net. Lots of great resources for character creation and other basics of the game. The Beginner's Guide to D&D 5th edition is really good for beginners, so check that out. Alright, everybody take care. You'll see me again soon, I'm sure.